Hello, everyone. This is Toygun from TBWA Istanbul. I'm Chief Strategy Officer. And today with me, I have Noah Khan, who's Regional President for Innovation in TBWA. And in Brand Week Istanbul 2020, we will be talking about the future of advertising. Right now, we're mostly interested in the future of humanity, what we're going to do living with the viruses. In Turkey, we're seeing some peak numbers. So we are in danger and discussing these issues. But at the same time, while we have Brand Week, we want to talk about future of advertising and what's going to happen in the coming years. So Noah, from your perspective, what are the hot topics when it comes to future of advertising?
Hey, Toygun. I think there are a few areas. One is where we've seen this massive shift to personalization, and I think that's been building up over time. And what our audience has started to do is arrive at a space where they are choosing what they want to respond to, what they want to watch, how they want to consume it, how they want to interact with brands. And so we are very quickly moving from these many space to one space where brands need to speak to you as Toygun, to me as Noah, and to somebody else as John. And I think that's a very interesting one. The second one that I'm also seeing is the over automation of creativity, which I think is a risk for the industry. And that's a very interesting one for us to keep an eye out for as well.
Mm-hmm. Are these two linked when brands need to speak to you as one person? Do they need some automation because they have a lot of things to do and they need to cater it to each individual?
Yes, so they are connected, and the automation of certain levels of process within our industry, I think, is absolutely essential and needed, where we are able to automate tasks that use up a lot of our resource, but can be done much better with the use of machines and artificial intelligence. I think those are areas we need to move further and further into, and that should in turn free up more of our time to do what we do best, which is imagine. And for me, the exciting thing about great creative industries, including ourselves, is that we live in this space of imagination and storytelling. And those are areas where I think automation fails. It leads to us losing our personality. And that's an area where I think we need to further empower and enable our people and fellow advertisers to do more, to own what they're doing, to work on the messaging, to build out approaches that speak to people as human beings rather than just as numbers. So I think there is a real need for us to get more involved in the imagination side of things, but at the same time look at how we can start offsetting more and more of the lower end tasks that can be done much quicker, better by machines to that space as well.
For the Turkish market, some of the things you're talking about could be quite new because in Turkey we're familiar with dynamic creatives and programmatic, but we haven't seen a lot of automated creativity, I would say. Like when I was visiting London last year, I had met a guy who had an agency totally on automated creativity and he believed in that. So there were like some agencies already working in that direction, but in Turkey, I don't think we see any entity totally focusing on that. When you talk about can you give any examples? What degree does it go to this automation that you see as a risk?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So one of the interesting topics of conversation we are seeing is if you can train machines and artificial intelligence to take on the role of writing copy. So there's a really interesting project called GTP3 that came out of the OpenAI project. And what GPT-3 does is it is the biggest language learning model to date. And it consumed a huge amount of data, and it is able to write near perfect copy. So a lot of companies are looking at models such as that to say, this can be the way that we write intelligent copy at scale. So if you give the machine enough information about product, about audience, about varying spaces, then what comes out would be incredible work. And the watch out and the concern for me around those spaces is that copywriting is a true art form. Great copy stands out compared to mediocre copy, right? So being able to write copy that speaks to people, that touches on emotion, that has personality, I think needs a real human touch. I think it needs real humanity at the middle of it in the way we create it, where we're able to build those connections, tell those stories. And there are a lot of creative companies that are looking at using models such as this to see if they can accelerate creativity by handing it over to machines. So that's the automation we are looking at, and that is also where the risk comes in, where I think we lose the art of what we do, and it becomes very mechanical. And the further challenge on a technology level with that as well is, as more and more of this material becomes mechanical and machine written, and the machine continues to consume its own work, what you're going to end up with is a very flat line very quickly. So the automation piece, as we were discussing a little earlier on, is really important in certain areas. So dynamic creative is a really, really good example. So with dynamic creative, we're able to put in certain number of assets. We're able to see what those permutations work out to be, what is most effective, and we're able to produce more and deliver at greater volume. And I think that is a fantastic example in use of automation and technology. Mm-hmm. Whereas something such as getting creative writing passed over to machines isn't.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Maybe we can make a distinction between acceleration and replacement, because that's what I call in your answer. Like at the same time, we should be open to new technology when it comes to accelerating our work, because on the other side, you're not that much into it, maybe because you're totally focused on innovation. But in our industry, there are people who are like kind of rejecting innovation and technology, and they see it as a threat for their own valuable work, and they believe that it's going to replace us. But if it's not a total replacement, if it's only about accelerating what we do, then we should be out there to look for new innovation, new technology. So there's a fine balance between these two ideas, perspectives, I would say.
Yes, absolutely. And we when we sort of look down history, when the printing press came out, everyone assumed that was the end of the world and everything was done for. And then you move into radio, and then radio is going to be the end of things, and then TV comes along, and I think innovation, especially in communications and advertising, continues to move us forward. Where we need to find a balance is how we use more of this to do things far more efficiently and augment the way we work, rather than replacing what we do completely. And the smart companies, the companies that are able to find that balance, are the ones that are going to accelerate into the future, while those that haven't are the ones that are going to struggle to find space. I mean, this pandemic's been a really good example of how working remotely has been accelerated, right? So we've talked about this at organizational levels for many years, and there's always been concerns about how effective it would be, how productive we would be, and what the pandemic has done is it's sort of forced us to work remotely, and we've been able to adapt, and we've been able to find those balances, and we've been able to find great productivity and effectiveness through that. So I think bringing in things that change the way we work, bringing in things that support us to more of what we value and do less of what we don't is important. And along with that comes the effectiveness piece. There are several things that machines can do far better than we can. And I think understanding across every single business what it is that you want to be focusing on so that you can free up the rest of your time to be taken over in not doing the things that you don't want. So, passing things over to machines to take over and giving you time to focus on the most valuable things for your organization, I think is going to be really important.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you talked about augmentation, and I think that's a very important word. So thinking about all this new technology as augmenting our own skills is a way to look at it, instead of seeing them as a replacement and expecting them to replace some of the things, valuable things we do. So that's a very positive way of looking at it. How can we augment? How can technology augment the things that we do?
Yeah.
And before we close, when it comes to 2021, after the pandemic, of all the technologies that we're discussing, talking about, do you see any one of them getting more important next year?
For me, the one that I'm most excited about is what augmented reality is going to do. AR and VR have been in development for a good few years, but over the last couple of years, augmented reality has really started taking a leap. And what augmented reality is allowing us to do is reimagine the spaces we're in, bring experiences into people's lives in new and interesting and exciting ways that we haven't been able to do before. And the new iPhone, I think, is going to be a huge leap forward in making that happen, with bringing LiDAR technology, which was ridiculously expensive and only could be in the most expensive self-driving cars, is now going to be in pretty much everyone's pockets. So being able to bring that type of technology to device is going to open up an exciting new space for us for next year.
Okay, we're looking forward to it. And thank you very much for your time and being with us today.
My pleasure as always. Very good.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.